Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. Andy and I playing on the IL today, but we're going to play through it.
Yeah, we got the Rona, man. It's not like we tested, but we got Vegas sick.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm 40 years old, Drew. This just happens when I even some of these weekends where I used to go home for Thanksgiving, long Thanksgiving, and you do the thing where you stay out with your,
of course,
back home buddies too late, 3 nights in a row.
Asking for it.
You don't get enough sleep, you're going to get sick. So we're not feeling great. I didn't even do the golf show I normally do with Noonan yesterday. I had to just get some rest. I sounded like shit. My throat was a mess, but we were fighting. This is our flu game. And apt because we're going to get to Lamar, and he had his diarrhea game. Joe Burrow has fought through a number of injuries. Obviously, had a couple that took him down for some time. We're looking healthy. We're looking chill. We're looking blonde. We're going to start with the Bengals, who did not make
fourth
the
place schedule.
Did not make the playoffs last year out of this division, which is
heavy favorites.
Yeah,
were they heavy favorites or are they just small favorites?
I would assume it'd be like a minus 150 to make the playoffs, although they started the season where Burrow had the calf injury, I believe it was.
Injury. Yeah.
He looked kind of bad. They started slow. He got healthy. They were hot. This was a team that beat good teams in the middle of the season. This was oh shit, should we be betting on this team to win the Super Bowl? Should we be betting on this team to, win multiple Super Bowls? Is this the start of a dynasty in successive weeks, they beat the 49ers and the Bills. And then obviously he got hurt again. I think the wrist was ultimately what did him in for the rest of the season.
That was week 11 at the Ravens.
And then, they got a few wins here and there, but they ended up, mostly that was window dressing. They did not make the playoffs after being, a really, really hot team in October into that part of the season. And you kind of wonder what it would have been because it was a really good roster. It was really vibing and things were going well. We finally had the healthy quarterback. We finally had the prince that was promised. Was not to be. I think this is it. This is your year, right? This is where we go for it. We got everything. We lost an offensive coordinator. I'd say offseason,
right.
He didn't call plays though. So you still have your play caller. You still have your defensive coordinator. I don't know that you improve that defense though. So if this is a team that you're bullish on, if this is a team you think is going to make some noise, if you want some positive, they just need a name for that, like positive and negative, betting on and fading. Need cooler nicknames for that group of over regular season win to win the division, make the playoffs, that whole group of bets. If you want any of those, I think you really, really are banking on this offense to be electric because I don't know.
NFL, right?
I don't know what amount of copium, even if you live in the Queen City there, is going to allow someone to say, this could be a good defense. You have a good coordinator who's done it, I guess. They were bad I think it was his first year or 3 years back, and they took a nice little jump, but some of that was on the back of bringing in the right players. I don't know what they did to improve this defense. This defense is very bad at times. And it's going to be a terribly imbalanced team if this offense is, at a level that I think we definitely can get to. It's going to be hot, nasty offense and gross, ugly defense.
Yeah, and I mean, it's fair to kind of come into this with a low number on the defense as a starting point. I'd completely there. I will say this, though. Some of the lessons learned from last year, Big Lou still had his fastball for the most part. But what was clear, I thought, was he didn't have safeties. And his safety play was real sus. And it felt like the loss of Bates and Who was the other guy? Was it Von Bell?
It was Bell. Yeah, it was Bell.
It was Bell.
Back. Yeah.
So the loss of Bates and Bell felt like tangible. That was the part of the field they continuously got beaten at. And the run defense was never very good. They had probably a pretty decent step backward from a guy who I had a decent rating on in Logan Wilson. And I think if there's going to be a turnaround in the defense, it's almost certainly going to come from the bringing Bell back and adding Geno Stone. I don't know that I'm really counting on that being a big swing to the positive here, but at a minimum, Big Lou's got more pieces to work with this year. The problem is the front seven is still hugely questionable and wicked old all of a sudden. So yeah, you need a big youth injection here on some young talent, and they took a bunch of swings in the draft, and we'll see if any of these guys are any good. Chris Jenkins Jr. How about that? We'll get a read on if they're able to develop young big bodies. If this defense improves beyond from what we saw last year. But I do think there was some important signal from last year's campaign. You're right. The entirely throw out the first 4 weeks of the season. That was not instructive at all. Bro was cooked.
That's not what you're expecting to get. No.
And it took until week 5 for any kind of sign that Burrow was, starting to rebound. And then you mentioned it, out of the bye week, he was electric against the Niners and the Bills. And then shocking loss to the Texans, injury against the Ravens, and it was over. But I look at that stretch where they were competitive against the Steelers in a loss after the injury to Burrow. They beat the Jags in OT. They beat the Colts convincingly. They beat the Vikings in OT. And really across that 4-game stretch, what stood out clearly was Jake Browning can play. I kind of want to give Zach Taylor some of that credit for that, right?
I think we said that earlier. I don't know if it was in the Vegas one or we were talking Coach of the Year. And we looked at prices, and I think his name had come up. Maybe it's when we were talking about a different coach. We said it 4 years, not even 4. I mean, even a couple of years ago, it was always despite Zach Taylor. Now I do think we have a bit of a higher regard for the guy, and what they did on offense, because he was the play caller. So him and he had Callahan as well, but him being part of just every day putting that offense together and then getting what he got out of a guy. Could he even said where he was before that, or
Jake Browning, I would have thought was one of the worst backups in the league.
Yeah.
And then real quick, you had to upgrade him. And I bet the Bengals a bunch down the stretch. I remember betting them to win the AFC because I kind of convinced myself that there was a non-zero chance they were going to squirrel into a playoff spot. And their AFC price was 100-1. And it was this is when they were 8-6, and there was a wide open, wild card spot to be had. Now, ultimately, they lost to the Steelers on the road. Browning finally came back to earth. He was pumpkin-esque in that one, and it was over. Steelers got that spot, but I think the December run for the Bengals really, kind of illustrated that Zach Taylor has a pulse. He's a guy. He's kind of at least in the mix with the LaFleurs of the world. Definitely, next level down from the McVays and the Shanahans of the world. But it was cool to see him be able to develop a replacement quarterback for Burrow to where this team did not quit. And I think ultimately it would have been real easy after Burrow went down. All right, guys. We don't know how many times we're going to have a super high draft pick in the Joe Burrow era. This is one of those years. And they didn't do that. And that deserves some credit. So my opinion of
when you have an owner like that who's just in it to win it every year, you got to do it for the ownership group at that point. Which is it is funny, of all the teams that you might get the nudge from above, hey,
wink, wink, nod, nod.
What if it's hey, go with Jake Browning. This will be fun. Was Jake Browning Washington? I feel like he was
a Washington Husky. Yeah,
it's I can remember him from college. He might have just been drafted in Cincy. He might not have played anywhere else. It wasn't that long ago he was in college, it feels like. But
2021.
so far as the season goes, it was one of those where we have 3 or 4 of these every year where, hey, what could have been, but your quarterback got killed, didn't happen. Moving on, middle of the pack draft pick, a lot of needs, defense stinks. Off season was, I don't know, like you got Trent Brown, you got Sheldon Rankins, like you said, you added Geno Stone and Von Bell at safety, which might end up being something. Gesicki is probably in a better spot than he was as far as getting the most out of him. I don't know if people are super excited about Zach Moss. I think he's fine.
I think that's an upgrade over that old man that was back there.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help. What they have at running back, and we'll get into that later, is probably a nice combo as far as what you're bringing in when you are wanting to throw the ball, because he's a downgrade as far as that goes. But you didn't get, I think it was apparent they didn't get who they wanted offensive line wise, but they did draft a huge friggin' dude in Amarius Mims.
Huge friggin' dude. They drafted some depth. They drafted some run stuffers and Jenkins and McKinley Jackson. They drafted another wide receiver, which they're going to need here, but they do have a little bit of depth there. And then, like we said, you lost Boyd, who I don't know if Boyd and Irv Smith are like huge losses. I'd say the DJ Reader, the Jonah Williams, the Woozy, and probably, I mean, even just Joe Mixon from a standpoint of he fit in here. And he was asking, he's doing what he was asked as far as being an addition to the passing game. So I think the losses outweigh the gains. Okay.
That said, usually you say, well, that means a worse season. Not if you don't end up with, 6 games of Burrow missing again. If you get 17 Burrow games, yeah, it's a better team, even if you took a little step back overall. And yeah, Chase Brown was who I was referring to there, Michael, as far as, it's gonna be a mix. Like
he also showed some serious pop down the stretch to the point where every time Mixon got a heavy load, you were like, "Come on, dude! Like, just give it some."
I know he was
Chase Brown in my life.
Full ass Pollard. Where it's like,
yeah, he was.
We're like, why are we running Zeke again? What are we doing here?
I'm fine though that they were kind of doing committee still. And honestly, like
they will.
I came into my process this year and I was looking at the depth chart and on the offensive side, I'm like, God damn, this is starting to feel thin, right? And like the vibes around the team in the offseason, you're right. Like it didn't feel great. It felt kind of cheap. Shocker. Showstopper. You're not going to believe it. Didn't really feel like they went and swung away and tried to address any holes to make a championship run. They're just going to try to do it. But then kind of evaluating some of the deeper parts of their roster in their preseason game, like they actually have a very, very good deep skill position group to where this is, I think, being a little bit overlooked how good these guys are and how deep they are. I don't really care about the losses on the offensive line. There was those guys, some of those guys were underperformers. The big questions for me are 100% like the front seven. Like, what's going on? What's the plan? Like, you're really just going to concede the trenches, I suppose. The pass rushers you have in Hubbard and Hendrickson are okay. Yeah, Hubbard's okay in run stop. Hendrickson's not. Your interior D, maybe you can generate some pressure with Hill. Rankins, I feel like, is rotational at best. You're really going to need some of the young guys to slide in and be surprises to the good. And I don't have no idea if these guys have enough juice to do so. You have Chris Jenkins Jr., a 2nd round pick, McKinley Jackson, a 3rd round pick.
Remember Chris Jenkins? It's just
I know. I can't believe we're here. I can't believe we're here.
Years old because I'm like, nah, Chris Jenkins.
I feel like Chris Jenkins was playing like 2 years ago. Yeah,
he played for Carolina like not that long ago.
It doesn't feel like it was that long ago. Yeah, and actually, I did a quadruple take.
Yeah, I'm like, he played for Villanova. That's a basketball joke.
He did play for Villanova, didn't he?
Completely different guy, I think.
Yeah, the original Chris Jenkins football guy he hadn't been in the league since 2010, but he had a good 10-year run between the Panthers and the Jets. And
he was a D tackle too, right? He was just an interior guy.
D tackle, yeah, number 77.
Just like that. I love that. I don't know why. Maybe there's some. I don't know why it gives you a warm fuzzy. It makes me feel better when the dad and the son play the same position. Like when they're even like Winfield, where it's just like, hey, you're both like secondary guys. It feels better than like, oh, why did you play wide receiver? Your dad was a defender. That's dumb. Like, I don't like this at all. So I do like that. And yeah, it It was another need they tried to fill a couple times. I think the other guy is a little banged up. That is going to be the hardest part of us to keeping up on while we're doing these live. Is a lot of my notes are a couple weeks old at this point, so I'm spending so much freaking time like who's banged up at camp, because everybody's banged up at camp. So if we make a mistake on somebody that got, is missing a little bit of camp because of this, that, obviously jump in the chat, let us know. Or if you listened, secondhand, help me keep my notes up to date, because it's such a pain in the ass. People get hurt every day.
Here's something I can't make a mistake on. Cullen Jenkins was Chris Jenkins' brother. Did you know that?
Really?
The two Jenkins were just dominant D linemen for a long time. Cullen Jenkins was a Packer from 03 to 10 and then bounced around. He played until 2016. And now we're up to Chris Jenkins Jr. Unreal. Okay. So, there's a lot of kind of hope and expectation on the defensive side of the ball that the young guys are going to be difference makers. And there's
hope in one hand and
right. And I honestly, okay, good luck. But I look across this offense and I see potential for greatness, and I'm very excited to see how it plays out. So let's you want to get to the ratings?
Yeah. I'm curious what you did with a couple of these, because this was another tough team. I'll just start with my QBOC.
Yeah.
I thought about downgrading him because of the loss of Callahan, but it doesn't seem like there's going to be a big bump in the road when we switch. So your replacement here is a guy who's been on staff for a good chunk of time.
Correct.
And again, it is Zach Taylor's play call. So Dan Pitcher was the QB coach. He got moved up. People like him. He'll still call the plays. And a quote from one of the Bengals writers says, he's also Zach Taylor has always been a big division of labor guy. He says it's healthy and it's smart. He says, Callahan's responsibilities were protections and red zone stuff. And then, Pitcher, who was a quarterback's coach, he was doing technique progressions, things like that. So he just moves up and kind of takes some of Callahan's stuff, and somebody else moves into that. Pitcher was a big part of their third down decisions, even as a quarterback's coach. So a lot of people were putting input into this. And, I think it's great. Somebody from, the calls coming from inside the house, rather than trying to bring somebody else in. So
sure.
I don't think you're going to see a big difference. I went with an 8. It's Joe Burrow. Okay. I mean, just intangibles and, some of the right off the bat we saw rookie year. I don't think he's taken a step back at all. He just hasn't been healthy.
Yeah, I'm at 8.5, so I'm basically equal to Josh Allen and OC. And most of that is I would put Josh Allen ahead of Burrow as quarterback alone, but I like the other way around. The other way around. And honestly, the thing about Zach Taylor's offense that gets me out of bed is he throws the ball all the damn time. The pass rate over expectation when they have Burrow back there is absurd. I love it. And when you have the wide receivers they have, then, let it rip. I fucking love it. And it's 8.5 for me.
Somebody I feel like this is probably a changing name in the chat. Some of these people, they appear and then the names change for 2 weeks.
Sure.
Page Sporonic Simp says, who are the biggest DGens drunks, etc. at Bet Bash?
Besides us?
Yeah, it was us, man. It was a mess. I don't think anybody got out of hand drunk. Or if they did, I was too drunk to notice.
Yeah, no.
Everybody was pretty cool. And Charles Saul pointing out the Mike Hall thing. I did put that. I posted that today. It's funny. We're like, oh man, they got a steal. Cleveland got a steal. I feel like he had to have been arrested 40 minutes after we recorded. It was the same night.
I shouldn't be laughing, but yes.
So, we're trying not to laugh about a serious matter, timing. But the comedy is me. The timing of me acknowledging somebody in the chat, I did it. I have notes on him. It's it was a nice draft pick because he fell, character issues. Sometimes character issues turn out to be Randy Moss. Sometimes character issues turn out to be, guy might get arrested, never play it down in the NFL.
Aaron Hernandez.
Yeah. To be fair, he had a nice career before he murdered a guy.
Yeah, that's true.
He was very good.
A couple guys. I
couple
forget now.
guys. Allegedly. Offensive line. I want you to go first because I'm nervous on this one. You hired me.
Okay, we're jumping around. So skill versus all.
See, I have them in the opposite order of my spreadsheet.
Okay. Well, I don't care. We'll go O line first.
I might have to change it.
I know I'm going to be high. I don't care. I think these guys are worth the 6.
Okay, I did go with a 5 here.
Okay. Talk me through it.
I gotta find my. Did I put it under OC? Oh, here it is. All right, Orlando Brown Jr. Yes,
he's got talent. Yes,
he's got talent. He can still pass block at a fair level.
Yes,
a bit better than last year.
Yes.
Cordell Volson, left guard, 4th rounder that wasn't great last year, but appears to be improving.
You know what else I can say positive about Cordell Volson? That guy, he's available, baby. He's indestructible somehow.
He's there.
He's there.
Ted Karras.
Yeah.
Center.
Yeah. He's also there.
He's okay.
Fine.
He's okay. Not average.
I would. Not average center. Fair.
That's why I'm at a 5. Like I think my negatives kind of outweigh the Orlando Brown positive. Alex Kappa, struggling in protection, declining. He's on the decline. It is. And then your right tackle is going to be. I mean, it's Trent Brown, Amarius Mims kind of mix.
It's got to be a downgrade from Jonah Williams, probably.
It is. Mims is top of the depth chart now, but he's out for a few weeks with the strained pec. And who knows? I guess a little bit of a continuity bump for everybody else, and then I give him a little bump for Drew Sample being a nice run blocking and everything blocking tight end. You have a couple of guards waiting in the wings, but I'm not excited about like Jackson Carman either. So I just I stuck with the 5. I said the negatives outweigh the positives, and everybody else is just not average.
Okay, I see. I like the left side. I worry a little bit.
I do. I'm worried about everything else.
Yeah. Right side concerns me, but not to the point where I'm going to make them average or worse than average. So I'm going to give them a 6. And I also think that just in general, freaking Burrow gets the ball out of his hand fast, man.
That's fair. The scheme should help it.
Yeah, that negates some of the questions I have about longer term pass pro. Skill group for you.
Skill group for me is a 6.5. This is very difficult.
Okay.
I looked at my Dallas one, and I said I gave Dallas a pretty low number here because it was like CeeDee Lamb is a world-class player. CeeDee Lamb might be the best wide receiver in the league at the end of the year. That's not like a low percentage bet to say he could be number 1. But after that, it gets real nasty. And this was less so. Okay. I'm willing to move this up if we can get a little more out of the youngsters. But huge plus. Higgins and Chase. Higgins sticking around number 1 with Chase is great.
Yes.
But it's very weak after that. We need Yoshivas needs to. I know he's a fantasy football darling right now. He needs to be good. Or this rookie Jermaine Burton's looking good as like a 4th option. Or
see him absolutely just thunder dunking on the 3rd stringers he was up against.
That's what I'm saying. It's hard to tell because of who he was playing.
It looked good though.
He looked very good in that game.
Like, whoa, I can play.
You lose like I said, you lose a little bit in the passing game with Mixon, but I'm not making it a negative moving to Moss and Chase Brown. Chase Brown's good. Moss is good enough. And then Gesicki I have Gesicki as a negative.
Okay.
But he was kind of in a weird spot where go look at him a few years ago. He had like 700 yards in 21. He in the right system can put up some decent numbers still, I think. So
absolutely,
it's very, very much above average.
I like him. I like him as a fit for this system a lot personally. Yeah. But honestly,
if him and Yoshivas and Burton work out, this is Nate. Yeah. I had to start a little low because I haven't seen it from any of those guys.
Okay, that's fine. I will tell you this: I came in knowing that I'm high. And if anything, I'm going down here. And
you're ceiling, I think.
There are two things that kind of very much keeping an eye on. Obviously, T. Higgins is playing on a franchise tag. Yeah. And I don't love that. He obviously, I think he probably should have gotten paid, but whatever. It's the Bengals. It is what it is. And Jamar Chase is holding in, which I don't love. He also needs to get paid. And I don't know. It's potentially a little bit of a troublesome room there if those guys are unhappy. Maybe you aren't getting the best out of your wide receiver 1-2 combo, which is top 3 in the NFL. So a little concerned about that.
I don't know if I actually put that in there, but yeah, the vibes aren't good from all
the
of
vibes
that.
aren't very good.
The hold in, the Higgins thing. Higgins, I don't know if he's not happy in general here. I think some of that is just he could be a 1 in a lot of places.
Absolutely.
And you know how wide receivers' brains work. I mean, it goes to the Denny tweet. They are divas in general. You have to be able to play the position.
Speak softly and carry enemies. Speak softly and carries a knife.
Carry a knife. You could be a 1 in a bunch of places. And as much as it's nice to play with another stud receiver, you could be that guy. And I mean, being 1 is a little better on your bank account. So my offensive rating ended up being lower than yours. I'm a 69th. Nice. Percent offense.
Nice.
And you are what, 71, 72?
77.
Oh yeah, you were higher on quarterback.
I'm high on all 3.
You're higher on me on everything.
Yeah, I'm expecting this to be one of the best offenses in the NFL.
I need to see it from some of the other receiving options and the new running back room. And as much as I did gloss over the fact that they lost a coordinator and said it shouldn't be a big deal, I just have too many. It's not like they have a big question mark. They just have a shitload of small question marks.
Of course.
That could bite them, like the offensive line changes, the depth at wide receiver, the new running back room, and the new tight end. All those little ones add up where I wanted to be on the floor. Like you said, you're probably high and you're probably at the ceiling. And I think 8 is a spot I could be if we see it from some of these young receivers.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be that's definitely going to be interesting. Pat Mahomes asking Gene Parmesan or Bob blah blah.
That's
Gene Parmesan. I have to give him the.
And also just because he
advantage
no longer with us. Scott Baio is.
Yes, and
sure
also Bob blah blah. He had.
Did he lob a law bomb?
The Bob blah blah law blog. He had a heater that was real small in the arc, and Gene Parmesan's was a little bit longer and a little bit more unexpected, I would say. So I'm gonna give it to Gene. But
all right, defense on the defensive side.
Okay, bad. 3 for me for run stop.
Oh, I was 2.5.
Oh,
this was one of the worst run stop teams, maybe the worst. I'm gonna have to look. It depends how you want to measure it, but it was bottom a lot in run stop. Logan Wilson, BJ Hill were fine, but everybody else was pretty rough. Like Sheldon Rankins used to be a plus here. He's gotten worse. Nobody else graded well in the second and third levels besides Jordan Battle, who was like your third safety. And I mean, he was another guy that played in the box just as much. He was playing deep anyway. He was more of a box safety linebacker kind of hybrid that was helping up there because they needed it. Losing Reader hurts. And then, it was a 42% success rate against them when teams run, which is essentially a tie for third worst. And I don't know if they did anything to get better. Chris Jenkins played for Michigan, interior guy, and then Jackson McKinley, I believe A&M, he hurt his knee. He's week to week. So your improvement pieces are probably, iffy at best because they're rookies. You need those guys to really come in big to make this any better. So I had to go pretty low here.
Okay. 2.5 actually sounds pretty reasonable. So I was at 3. I didn't really downgrade them a ton, despite DJ Reader being a minus here. They were 25th in EPA per rush allowed last year, which is pretty bad.
I think maybe a pushback
could ultimately be their Achilles heel.
A pushback could be maybe like Von Bell isn't going to be horrible.
Maybe Logan Wilson plays more like he played 2 years ago too. Like he had some absolute heater moments 2 years ago when the Bengals defense was cooking.
You need somebody in that second or third level to get better as well, not only just help in the interior line.
Yeah, we definitely don't sleep on Barry Zuckercorn, Michael, but he was in too much of the show to be considered for the Dion Waiters heat check award, right? He was in at least half the episodes, I feel like. All right. So the pass rush for you is what?
Oh God, I lost my spot here. Ratings. Pass rush 4.5.
Okay, I'm at 4, so I'm a little lower.
This was the highest rate. I just couldn't go lower than that. I started this at a 5 when I did my initial ratings. I'm like, hey, Trey Hendrickson, like this is a really good piece there. And then I started to look at the linebackers and what we're getting, and honestly, what we're getting from a scheme standpoint from them and the interior players, and it just nothing was really vibing on the pass rush. Trey Hendrickson's a stud. It's solid. Yeah. It's great they were able to keep him. Raskins is like I mentioned, he's becoming worse in run stop, but he's actually getting some nice interior pressure. And then
honestly, he's a situational down guy.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. He's not playing 1,000 snaps either. That's the thing.
I can't.
There's a bunch of guys, and then a bunch of guys who are going in at Cam Sample hurts. You lost Cam Sample. That was again a rotational piece. He wasn't gonna play 1,000 snaps, but it doesn't help. BJ Hill is adequate to below average. Hubbard didn't have a great season at the other edge spot. Myles Murphy, first rounder last year, when he got in, he was okay.
Was he?
It was at least in this sense. I'm looking at it now. Yeah, pass rush. So I have a decent pass rush number.
Okay.
But he wasn't asked to do that a ton. So some of these other ones who have had some success in the pass rush, it's like, well, hey, you were an okay pass rusher in the 150, 200 snaps you did. You were asked to be a pass rusher. Some of these guys are not big contributors to that part of the defense. And the guys who were, like besides Hendrick and Rankins, Hubbard, like Zach Carter. I don't have a good grade, but Zach Carter, Cam Sample, even though I said it sucks he's gone because the guys behind him are probably worse.
Yeah.
It was just an okay pass rush number.
We didn't see Myles Murphy have more than 50% of defensive snaps until week 15 last year. So really don't know what to make of him as a very, very sparsely used situational guy early in the season.
I mean, he was very rarely used the first half of the season coming in out of Clemson.
Yeah.
And I feel like he might have even been injured preseason or
early
in the season.
That's not
crazy. He did play a little more after week 10, but yeah, he was still rotational.
He was like a 0 or 1 pressure a game kind of guy, which is not anything to write home about. Okay, yeah, I mean you got Hendricks and a bunch of question marks, so 4 for me. Coverage for you?
4.
Okay, I'm a 4 for coverage as well. And I wanted to go higher because I do have a decent grade on Cam Taylor-Britt. I think he has potential. DJ Turner and Mike Hilton are both average. And I'm hopeful that Von Bell and Geno Stone give Lou the tools he needs to have a better coverage unit this year because last year they weren't very good.
Hilton played well. He's a nickel guy, but nobody stood out. He said, I have Cam Britt Taylor's good, not great, were my exact notes. Geno Stone, solid coverage safety. Von Bell's fine, I guess. Dax Hill switched from safety and has been playing over DJ Turner at the mandatory minicamp to start the season. I didn't actually figure out what that's going to turn out to be. I think either way, it's not great. I think Dax Hill was maybe corner is his natural position. Sounds like he's switching either way, whether it's to replace Turner on that other side or to just be a guy who can spell, Britt Taylor and Turner.
Okay.
Jordan Battle was.
I got
another one.
Yeah, go ahead.
He was another one that I had. It's like he saw a lot of action and wasn't terrible. These are like the positive things I'm trying to write. Pratt and Wilson linebackers, they were okay when they were asked to cover. Everybody was just like league average or a little worse.
That's reasonable. I got a correction retraction. I actually have Cam Taylor-Britt as good, legitimately good. I think he's very much in the mix with the tier 2 wide receiver CB1s across the NFL in terms of production.
Him and Geno are my 2 positives.
Yeah.
If you have your 50% line, Geno and Cam Britt Taylor above it. Everybody else is at or well below it.
I would have been at least a 5. Except I actually have a very bad grade for DJ Turner.
Yeah,
I think
that's what I'm
DJ Turner
saying.
might be
Like
the problem.
this guy who
Yeah.
didn't play corner last year is starting over him in certain parts of camp.
Dax Hillis. Okay.
Yeah. So it might be
That's
Dax
probably
Silver.
good. That's probably good.
That was my one thing of
Mike
like,
Hilton is good. Mike Hilton's fine. DJ,
that's
if
where I did write that as a
if we
note.
can replace those DJ Turner snaps with anybody who can, I don't know, prevent separation, then I'm good. That would be nice. Otherwise, he's kind of the weak link you attack on this defense, which will keep their floor relatively low. All right, so I'm at a 30. We're at the same exact number. You're at 36.7 percentile, 36.7 percentile for me as well. Where are you for special teamos? This is actually kind of tough because Evan McPherson has been up and down. He was way up, and then way down, right?
I still put this as a 6.
6? Okay.
Yeah. It's still good enough. He's good. The punter's mad but young. One of the reasons I did bump it up a little, they ranked really good in coverages for both punting and kicking, which is, I don't know, that's kind of like hidden yards too. And it's not going to be some massive swing, but they're still getting a 6. Good question from Paige Sporonic Sim. Do you guys just aggregate other guys' evaluations? Or do you scout every player on film like Nerd? I don't think we film scout a ton, but some of the notes are just from shit we remember from last year. I look at we talked about this in the preseason pod we did about how we were going to do this. We were going to take some PFF grades. We're going to take any other grading systems we could find. We joked about even looking at Madden grades at some points. I did that a little with kickers because kickers are hard to grade. And people are like, well, he was okay, but he missed some long ones. I'm like, what does Madden think?
Okay.
Some of it is just reading too with, hey, why does this guy have such a bad PFF grade if he's clearly going to be starting this year?
Sure. I'm not a film study guy at all.
I read a lot.
So I am basing mine a lot on data aggregation. I have qualitative opinions of all of these guys. But yeah, we're trying to come to a number that reflects a lot of different data sources on average. And I think so far, I'm pretty stoked on what we've come up with, but we'll see. Intangibles for you?
It is a 7.
Ooh, I'm at 7.5 there. So I do really like this coaching staff. I like Big Lou's ability to adjust for second halves. I like Zach Taylor's pass rate over expectation. I like their ability to develop Jake Browning. Like there are a lot of small kind of softish stuff that I think really helps me kind of have a little bit more confidence in this team generally. So my intangibles are high, and I think ultimately my rating for this team is going to be close to the ceiling of anyone you ask, I would guess. I'm at a 67.8 percentile overall for the Bengals. And again, if you need clarification, what does that number mean? I would give them a 67.8 win probability against an average team on a neutral field. And that means I would give them 6 points in that regard. Andy, you're at a 61.4 percentile. That means you give them what, 33.5?
What was your number? 67?
67.8 for me.
Yeah, I rounded up to a 4. I'm 4
You're at a
points
4.
above average.
Okay. 4. Okay. Cool. Still pretty damn good.
Still a very good team. It's crazy. It's not a playoff team from last year.
Yeah. So basically, I have the Bengals exactly on par with almost. I have them on par to almost to the third decimal point with Detroit. I have them slightly better than Philly. You are kind of clearly a step below Detroit and Green Bay. You're clearly below Buffalo. You're more of a Dallas. Okay.
Dallas, Miami, somewhere in that range for now. And even the Jets, I am pretty close to the Jets number.
Okay. I mean, it's not going to surprise anyone. Most of I don't have a ton of positive bets in the AFC this year, but I do have a bunch of Bengals bets. And the schedule that we're looking at now is a huge reason why. You win those 4 or 5 high leverage games on your schedule, like this is your 1 seed.
Yeah, and that's why we make a number, and we talked about this, of all the billion things you could take. Good question by the chat there, to inform your price. This is not one of them. It's independent of the schedule. And once you get here, even Andy, who's, saying this is clearly a second tier team, I can still be pretty bullish on this team based on what they have for a schedule. It's a fourth place schedule. They still have a very tough division, but boy, there's a lot of shitty teams in the schedule. Nothing's a gimme. This isn't college football where you get to play the Citadel, on your basically an off week for an SEC team. But boy, there are some absolute. You got to win these fuckers. You got to win all these games, and then do well in your division. Even like 3-3 in division. If you get all the other ones, you're making the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think what's kind of nice, a couple of things on the schedule. I like how it starts soft with the exception of that Kansas City game week 2. So like the homework assignment is pretty straightforward. Like that's your early season Super Bowl. Win that game, you set yourself up for the 1 seed. Your first crack at division rival Baltimore is on your territory. You don't have to go up against truly elite defense until you get to week 7 at Cleveland. You avoid the Jets defense. You avoid you avoid a lot of gnarly head-to-heads, honestly. No Buffalo, so your defense doesn't get to get exposed by Josh Allen. No Houston here, which is going to come into play in a minute, because when you can swap at Tennessee for at Houston, which is what they're doing relative to Baltimore, and you can swap the Patriots for the Bills, which is what they're doing relative to the Ravens in the AFC East matchups. And then their NFC matchup is at Carolina instead of drawing the Bucks, which isn't as big of a deal, but still nice to have Carolina on your schedule when no one else in the AFC North does. So pretty solid little delta on those 3 games, which are your differentiating games schedule-wise. And then not a ton of travel that I'm spooked by. Back-to-back at Baltimore, at LA, at the Chargers is tough, going east and then going west. But you get your bye after that to reset. Back-to-back at Dallas, at Tennessee. The second of those is not spooky. You get some nice a nice soft landing of Denver, Pittsburgh on the way into a playoff run.
One of my concerns was pass rush, or offensive line going up against some good pass rushes. And right off the bat, Matthew Judon is no longer on the schedule.
Yeah, that's true.
New England. And then, KC, still you have
Chris Jones is good.
You have some players there, but Washington shipped all their guys off last year. Carolina shipped their guy to New York. Baltimore is good. Obviously, Baltimore, you have Dexter Lawrence and the Giants, you have the Cleveland, but it gives you a few weeks to straighten things out there. And a lot of the tougher ones are in the middle to late part of the season. Not a great stretch there where you have Cleveland, Philly, Las Vegas, Crosby. You have Baltimore again. You have the Chargers, who, if they do anything good, it might be the pass rush. And then Pittsburgh, Micah Parsons. There's a nasty stretch in the middle where if this offensive line doesn't trend more towards your number, it could be a bit of a problem. But you did talk about that. Burrow is apt to get the ball out quick. You have good separation receivers. If this offense is humming, maybe it's not as big of a problem if it's a middle of the pack offensive line. We've seen that. There was a meme that still goes on for this year's about God. Chase turned out so good, but wasn't the original Jamar Chase meme?
Jamar Chase versus Penny Sewell.
It was Penny Sewell, which, Jesus, what do you want to do? They both turned out to be all pros.
Yeah, right. It's true. The Chase conversation is a little complicated, though, because it's pretty clear his best ever season was his rookie year. Is that a red flag?
It's tough to say with the flux we've had at quarterback.
He was your best player last year, Jamar Chase. But
give him that.
That was in large part because your quarterback only played 10 games. Yeah, I mean, a little bit of a step backwards after a rookie year that made it look like he was going to be wide receiver one of the entire NFL.
Talk about your bets you made then. I'm not as bullish on them as you. Obviously, I love the schedule.
Sure.
And like I said, a lot of my ratings are floor-ish, closer to the floor, where I'm very willing to move them up if Yoshi. We need a nickname for that guy. I think some people call him Yoshi. Yoshivash.
Can I get a nation of origin check there? Where's he from?
Buddy, I don't know.
That's quite a name. So yeah, I have small stake in AFC North. I have a stake in Bengals to be the 1 seed in the AFC, and I have a little bit of MVP on Burrow because I think that shortens. That was you made that case in the Bet Bash pod.
He is a Japanese-born player who went to high school in Hawaii.
That's awesome.
He was also a heptathlete on Princeton's track and field team. He set the school record.
Filipino
All-American heptathlete.
Oh my gosh. Very cool.
All kinds of things.
Very cool. Okay.
Filipino Romanian. Oh, that's a classic combo.
Yeah.
It's like what's I can't think of the tennis player now.
Naomi Osaka, Haitian Japanese.
Japanese Haitian.
Yeah, Naomi Osaka. Yeah. Amazing. Okay. Shoe. Let's talk about upside a little bit and
your bets.
Okay, so yeah, we mentioned it. I'm an AFC North, I think, is for real. Right now, by the way, let's look at these prices and see if I got any cleave there. Bengals are plus 150, slight dog. Oh, sorry, excuse me. They are now we did these out of order, Andy. The Bengals are now the favorites.
All right, scrap it. Everyone, forget what you heard. We're gonna do this. We're gonna start over.
I think I bet I'm looking at my number. I bet plus 180. They're down to plus 150. I'm actually I kind of want to. I would tickle the Browns at price, honestly. Browns are up to plus 470. The big number. But for me, I'm not. It's going to take an injury or a real problem with the offensive line for me to lose confidence that the Bengals are just going to be a damn good offense this year. The price on Burrow MVP was 8-1. The price on most wins. Hang on a second. I didn't bet Super Bowl for these guys.
Sure.
And I don't know why. Right now they're 14-1 to win the Super Bowl. It's tough to see a world. I guess who would they be dogs to in a Super Bowl? If let's say 1 seed comes through. Let's say the soft schedule relative to the other AFC contenders is the differentiator, and this is your 1 seed.
Well, my number isn't your number, but I mean, I'd have them as a dog to the Niners. I'd have them as a dog to the Eagles.
Okay.
I'd have them as a slight dog to the Detroit Lions and Green Bay Packers.
Okay.
I mean, but none of those by a lot.
But again, I'm just saying, if we get to the point where if we get to the point where Joe
that's
Burrow,
the thing, if they hit their ceiling, and I'm have them as more of closer to your number, I'd have them closer to a 67th, maybe a 70th percentile team, where then they're probably pick them against the Niners and Eagles and slight favorites against Detroit, Green Bay.
Okay.
And then obviously a big dog to Atlanta.
Their AFC.
Oh, Porter already made the joke thing.
Slight dog to the Falcons.
Yeah.
Slight dog to the Falcons. Now that they got Judon, you got to rethink what your number is there. The general kind of thought process, I think, is regular season success. The defense being weak scares me in postseason. This is kind of where I'm at. Is that fair?
Can live with it.
I am marrying nuclear elite offense, weak schedule, 1 seed. And then whatever happens in the playoffs, we're going to learn something about the defense in Big Blue.
I was going to say the defense just lets them down big.
Probably.
It'll be fun. We haven't had one of those in a while. A true just We've had some barn burners that went one way, but I would love a big. Remember the Rams Chiefs game? Of course you do.
Mhm.
They kept your bet even though they moved the location. I want one
Yeah.
of those in the playoffs.
Oh god, that would be so good.
Highest scoring team. Highest scoring team. Did you
I
have
like
a
that.
price in that?
Let me look at what that price is. We can talk about it. But no, the dream scenario is Bills come in again. Like we are keeping 2 and 3. We're keeping those locked for so we can get that divisional round matchup between the Jets and the who's the other team? The Chiefs. We want the Jets and the Chiefs to the Meadowlands in the 2-3. I'm going to send Houston to Cincinnati.
This is another one we
That'd
talked about when we talked
awesome.
about Miami.
It'd be so
We said
fucking
Miami
fun.
going to another cold weather city again, and Cincinnati was definitely one of those options. Where
Definitely possible.
Cleveland, Baltimore, Cincinnati, any of them win the division and host Miami. It's just such a bad stretch for Miami.
Yeah. So here's where I think the Bengals run ends. Well, I'll continue to look up this price. A team like Houston, maybe Buffalo, coming to town off your bye. That's a problem. A diverse set of weapons and no ability to stop the run. If you go down, if you start a little cold in those games, if the pass rush of Danielle Hunter is blowing up your right side and you go down a score or two in that game, you're in deep trouble.
I think it's these teams where we saw this with Miami. It's like, oh, the offense isn't all world today. Well, you're not going to win. Like your defense is and their defense was banged up and having other issues, but it's like you don't have the defense to play this kind of game where you need to score. And it might be one of those where if there's an off day, they're going to lose to a team they shouldn't lose to. I mean, we've seen that with Buffalo the last few years too, where if Allen has a couple of bad turnovers and Diggs just wasn't being Diggs, especially this last season, it's like, oh no, we lost to a really bad Jets team. Oh, like things like that happened all the time to some of these teams who were kind of imbalanced. And for the Bills' credit, theirs was that was a good defense at the start of the season, but they had injuries at all three levels. Some of their best players at all three levels were getting hurt. And this is your starting point, is a bad defense, where if this offense has off days, you lose those games.
Yeah.
So you can't have those against like some of these shit teams. Otherwise you're going to lose like a 21-17 game to Washington. You can't have that if you want to win this division. It's too competitive.
Yeah.
That's where I'm a little out on it. I don't, obviously we don't rate defense the same we rate offense, but
all right. Stage of elimination to lose in the divisional round, plus 320.
At Burrowhead.
I can't find most points scored. Sorry, guys. My brain's not working.
I feel like that's harder to find offshore.
Well, they had most and least points.
Maybe bet
for sure last year.
It.
I'll be damned if I can.
I don't think Bookmaker had that. I think you have to look at Bet Online for that, or some of the legal options. But yeah, we'll dig into that. I don't need anything else before we flip the page here.
No, let's do it.
To Baltimore. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday if you listen to this right away as a podcast. Enjoy whatever day it is. If you could leave a thumbs up if you watch this, we're gonna kill the stream. We're gonna head to a different one. We're gonna talk about the Baltimore Ravens. Appreciate you guys. The season is creeping up.